The reason why I read this poem in front of the library is it's called Melville, which happens to be the name of the research card catalog system at the UC system libraries. It also happens to be the name of another writer some of you may have heard of. And libraries have become a place of refuge, so that's part of this poem. I'll read this and a couple of others. Melville. You cannot loiter long in this downtown library branch without being asked what you're looking for. I said, I always wanted to read the lives of the squids. The librarian mentioned that there were 3 volumes. She looked me over like I was an olive in a root beer glass. I'd rather do origami than read about the construction of innocence in the 19th century. I'm not a formalist, but I can read inscriptions on a crypt as well as the next guy. I'm tired of living on salt, pork, and whale fat, bored with looking into the dead mouths of coelacanths. She looked at me as if I had taken something unspeakable out of my pocket. She said she could look up mollusks on her computer. Cephalopods, I corrected. That's when she explained that there was a prejudice in this district, dependent on it as it was on the bovine economy. Excuse me, I said. I said the truth was I had recently fractured my knee, which caused me to speak on several topics at once. What was I just saying now? She looked so sweet then, so terribly thin. I barely stifled an impulse I suddenly had to touch her ear. I'm sorry, I said, but I had lost my thought. As she tilted forward, I could see her forehead's waxy gleam, her pasty white neck, the light slipping down the modest slope of a breast. Oh, I was lost. By the time I came to my senses, I realized I was standing beside a whirlpool. There was no way I could go back to what I had been doing, parsing sentences, doing piecework. I had to shape up. I had been drowning in pages of water, living in a group home. Surely I knew the truth slanted. What sad harpoon had I lashed myself to? On what bone had I been gnawing? I had consented to the doctrine of filth only because what else could one do? How could I have not seen the taxicabs idling, their signs turned off? It was time to go by then. The air was being shut off a little at a time. There was a lance in my side. She was saying something. She was telling me a fable about obedience that I didn't already know. And this poem is also in that spirit of things about obedience you didn't know. I think we see these signs more often than we used to. Signs that tell us what we can't do. What is not allowed is the title of this poem. There are some of those signs along the campus, so if you have your skateboards or your bikes handy, you might pay attention. What is not allowed? Lightning writes its name on the horizon, but no rain falls. It's an ill wind you've learned that blows nobody good. Of course, you know it's not the wind that's ailing. Beneath the veins of neon that thread the dark, the town plaza is awash in the fumes of coffee grounds and gasoline. Festooned with fangs of graffiti, there's a sign that lists what is prohibited. Skateboarding, breakdancing, gathering in groups of more than 4, despoiling the plate glass kiosks that pop up amid the bleak geometry like fungi. An effervescent saxophone haze wafts from the doorway of a Starbucks, spreading its caffeinated narcolepsy among the patrons, each staring meaningfully into their insulated cups, picking at a dirty fingernail or scratching their stubble as if at a Parisian sidewalk cafe. But here they are not allowed to smoke or bring their dogs in with them to sit across the table like a lover. Here one is not allowed to read over the shoulder another's newspaper or converse in Latin with the proprietor of a flower shop. Here one is not allowed to mention the crime of weather or to shed one's top to reveal a recent intimate tattoo. Clothes must be the marquee, the midriff-bearing camisole top, the boxers peeking out from under the waistband of baggy, low-slung jeans. One is not allowed to shout the price of gold into a cell phone in Farsi, or in full view of the barista to sign one's divorce decree. One is definitely not allowed to blast hip-hop on a boombox, even on the corner, or to ask the customers for change, for spare change. No one is allowed to pay for drinks with pennies pulled from a woolen sock. Nor can one sit at a table without buying something. The management will summon someone to move you along, saying he has a bone to pick with you, that he will adjust for you painlessly if you cooperate. Otherwise, he'll take you down to the crossroads, where you'll be lucky if you keep any of your joints intact. Evidently, there's a convention of plainclothesmen up the street. Anything that you say will surely be used against you, and anything you wish to protest without the expressed written consent of the police commissioner's office and the mayor's re-election committee is strictly prohibited. So I don't really mean to mix poetry and politics. Why don't I just do a mashup of what happens when you take a romantic Lake District English poet and put them in California. I mean, we have the same climates at certain times of year. I think that actually the spirit of the Romantic poets has infused itself into Central Coast, beginning way back with Edward Markham and continuing on through George Sterling, and then on to Robinson Jeffers, and perhaps through the Beat poets, no doubt. That spirit of wandering in fields of daffodils is part of our DNA in Northern California. And today's a good day for wandering in the fields of daffodils, that's for sure. You can see them all out there, or wander among the fields of poets. So this is my last poem, and then I'll introduce our reigning poet laureate, Sally Ashton, who just came from class. So imagine Wordsworth in Santa Cruz now. I did a series of placing Lake District poets in various places around California. I'll just read this one for you. Here's Wordsworth in Santa Cruz. Some of the geography is real. Before the flood, he lived on Love Creek Road, and with his sister read tarot, flipping cards on a red velvet scarf outside cafes along the Pacific Garden Mall. From the point, he watched surfers in black neoprene paddling out, sleek as otters, lining up to catch the head-high sets, and get pounded in Steamer Lane, where the waves break both right and left. And in the backwash, the water sprays up through itself like smoke, as if the bay were composed of cold blue flame that smolders against the rocks. In the parking lot, there'd be the usual mulch of VW vans and rancheros, people half undressed, toweling off, brushing sand out of their suits. Overhead, a flock of cormorants, winged migrants, trolling for fish or garbage. At dusk, he'd head back to his cottage, a garage behind the boardwalk where the wind had scrawled obscenities in the dirt in Spanish. swallows making wide blue arcs dive under the eaves. He'd sit out through the poverty of the evening and listen to the voices overflow from the amusement park, like the smell of cotton candy. Hungry, he'd wander over to the refreshment stand, order French fries and a Coke, only to discover that the word for starlight had vanished, as had other words consigned to spontaneity's leafy passages. All thoughts confined to memory, which the more he'd try to access, the more it seemed he'd forgotten. Though there were times walking home when he could almost remember golden flowers in the wallpaper. Nights when his friends came over with a jug of Carlo Rossi, and they'd talk almost till dawn, the experience, even as he was having it, gone, melted away. Only emptiness preserved and the daylight's famished vernacular.